Hello, hello. Yes, shall we get started? Good evening, everyone. My name is Shirley. Today I'm going to host the seminar. Today the seminar day is prescription drug abusing awareness forum. As you received the flyer. And today's seminar is co-hosted by APAPA Tri-Valley chapter and the NCAPDA. So NCAPDA, I'm going to later introduce what that is representing. But because Officer Matt Memo today has a tight schedule, we have to really directly go to his talk first. And we'll wrap up, express our appreciation for our audience and our speaker later. But really, first I want to extend our appreciation to our two guest speaker, Solomon Police Department Officer Matt Memo, for he taking busy time to give the presentation to our community. Another is NCAPDA founder April Ravello. We're going to introduce her later, but I'm first going to introduce Officer Matt Memo. He has been working for the police department for 27 years and working for some Contra Costa Sheriff's officer for 23 years and 18 years as an undercover detective of narcotic abusing team. So he's really expert of the illegal drug issues. So he's going to give the presentation about illegal drug abusing issue. Okay.
Okay, I don't need the microphone because you guys can all hear me. We'll wait. I was told there's going to be 60 people here, so we need to wait a little while because we're not quite at 60. No, I'm kidding. Where did Andy go? How do I operate? Can you go into the PowerPoint? Okay guys, I look like this because I'm undercover. I work for the city of San Ramon as a police officer, right? But we work sometimes with other agencies. I'm working with the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency out of Oakland on a task force. So I have to try not to look like a police officer, right? Kind of hard to do, I want to get really, so I got a lot of gray hair. It makes me look, I can follow people around and they don't know that I'm the police. My goal tonight is I get to spend about 30 minutes with you just going over drugs, drug awareness, drug ID. I teach at the police academy, or I did up until a few months ago. I teach the drug class to all the academy kids for 3 days straight. So I had 500 slides of the PowerPoint. I couldn't do that tonight with you guys in 30 minutes. So I whittled it down to about 100. I'm going to go through the PowerPoint relatively quickly, showing you the drugs that are out there, showing you photographs of some of the stuff, and I'll show you some examples. Like this stuff right here. Anybody use Aquanet still? Anybody? Well, it's not really Aquanet hairspray. It looks like hairspray, but it's a hidden compartment. Drugs, stuff like that can be held inside here. This stuff is all out there. Does everybody know what a head shop is? A head shop is a place that sells these kinds of things. Marijuana pipes, marijuana bongs. There are at least 3 in the city of San Ramon. Every city has them. Dublin has them. Pleasanton has them. They have them all over the place. Looks like a simple bottle of Diet Pepsi, but it's actually a hidden compartment it's made for jewelry. It's made for money. Honest people have these, but the drug dealers often use these to hide and secrete their drugs. This is an old one here, but so anyway. So that's the stuff related to drugs. That stuff is everywhere out there. So let me go through the PowerPoint. And we're going to go fast, Andy. What is a drug? It's any substance when taken in the body that can cause physical or mental impairment. Yeah, keep up with me, Andy. We're going to go through these quick. Opiates, narcotics. Opiates are synthetic opiates. Their major function is analgesic, pain suppressant, and may produce a sense of euphoria. So I'm going to go through this stuff and show you some of the stuff that's out there. Examples: morphine, methadone, oxycodone, Vicodin, and then heroin. Methods of ingestion. How do you get the drug into your body? You can inhale it, like smoking it through a bong or a pipe. You can inject it with a syringe. I think I have some syringes. Using a syringe, putting it in your vein, all right, or your muscle. I know, it's gross. I teach a class, and we let everybody use a syringe, and we actually have a small lime. I put a small lime in the crook of their arm, and they actually inject the syringe into this little line. It's kind of cool, but we can't do that tonight. Injection, you go in the muscle or the vein, or intranasal, snorting it. A lot of people will snort it, and some people use these with heroin nowadays, and they will snort heroin. They liquefy it, and rather than putting it in their vein or smoking it, they'll sometimes snort it. Kind of weird. Okay, method of ingestion. Also transdermal, goes through your skin, or eating it, ingesting it. And eating it is the slowest way. Hash brownies, marijuana brownies. Hopefully I'm not talking too high above your guys' head, but you've heard some of these terms. That stuff is out there. Let's see, polydrug use is when people use multiple drugs. We have a lot of people out there now using heroin and methamphetamine, and those two drugs do two different things to you. Heroin slows you down and makes everything really slow. Methamphetamine and cocaine make everything really, really fast. Kind of like I talk right now. I act like I'm under the influence of cocaine or methamphetamine, but I'm not. I just talk really quick. Okay. Polydrug use, when you use two or more substances. Okay. A user will use heroin and cocaine. Tolerance, everybody has a tolerance level. First time users, when they first start to use the drug, it doesn't take very much to make an effect or have an effect on their body. The more they use, the more their body needs, and it gets more and more expensive, and it really hurts the body after a while. Addiction, it's a physical or psychological dependence on a drug. A lot of drugs out there are not physically depending you. In other words, some drugs you don't have to have in your body. Some drugs you do have to have in your body. Heroin, oxycodone, these opiate-derived drugs, after you use it for a while, your body stops producing certain things. Endorphins, stuff like that, where your body has to have it. So if you know anybody that's using oxycodone, Oxycontin, Norco, those kinds of pills, limit them, okay? Don't let them have those. My son went in for surgery 2 years ago. He's 21 years old. He had shoulder surgery. Doctor gave him 60 Oxycontin pills. That's way too many. That is very, very common. She'll talk about that in a little bit. Those drugs are bad. Once they start using Oxy, they start using heroin, and I'll show you some pictures here in a little bit of a San Ramon resident, 23 years old, died of a heroin overdose several months ago. Bad. It's out there. What else we got? Overdose is too much drug in your body. Stimulants, drugs that can increase the activity of the brain and other body parts of the central nervous system and promote the sense of well-being. Cause impairment by slower stimulating the brain, accelerating the heart rate, respiration, elevating the blood pressure. Okay, let's talk about cocaine. Cocaine is still popular. We don't see it a lot in San Ramon, Pleasanton, Danville, Dublin. We don't see it a whole lot, but it is still out there. This is the countries where it comes from. I'll show you some photographs of it. It's made from a coca leaf. That's what cocaine is made from. They use all kinds of chemicals and they convert it into cocaine. It used to be in Coca-Cola 100 years ago. Believe it or not. And the leaves have been chewed by Indians for centuries. It's a topical, go back down there. It's still a topical anesthetic for eye, ear, nose surgeries. This started to be controlled in 1914, so 102 years ago. This is powdered cocaine, okay? That's what it looks like, almost like powdered sugar, right? Powdered sugar looks like very, very white and powdery. Cocaine hydrochloride, this is a powder form of cocaine. It's usually white and yellowish, cocaine base. We don't see cocaine base very much out here. Where I worked in the county, we saw it a lot. Pittsburgh, Richmond, Oakland, they still sell and use a lot of cocaine base. We won't go into that because you don't see it very much. But you'll see some photographs of what it looks like. My goal tonight, I should have said this at the beginning. My goal tonight was just to show you some of the stuff that's out there in case you see it. Some of your friends see it. You see it with some of your friends' kids or whatever. Just to know if you see it, I've seen that before. I think that I saw that in Matt Malone's class. Just something for you to have in the back of your mind. Different way it's packaged, you know, in these small Ziploc baggies. This is cocaine right here. This is a kilo. 2.2 pounds is a kilo. That's where it's made in those countries you saw and shipped to pretty much around the world in this size container here. 2.2 pounds. About $22,000 to $25,000 for that amount of drug. 2.2 pounds. A lot of money, a lot of stuff. You see how they package it over here. That nowadays they're using the small Rubbermaid containers that you buy at the grocery store, almost the disposable plastics. They'll wrap them all up, wrap them with cellophane, duct tape, electrical tape, and whatever. And there's a lot of money involved with that stuff. This is crack cocaine. You shouldn't ever see this out here, but you never know. It's normally not that brown, it's normally a little bit whiter. This is how you make it. We'll go on to the next scene because we're going to how to make it. They actually use baking soda, water, and the drug. And sometimes they use yeast and flour to make it bigger but less potent. This is how they package the drugs. We don't need to go into that. It's just how they can use any container. Okay, this is drug paraphernalia, what they use to ingest the drug with. This is a crack pipe. Crack pipe is different than a crank pipe. Crack is methamphetamine. Crank is a street term for, crack is cocaine. Crank is a street term for methamphetamine. This particular pipe with the Brillo pad in the end of it is used for smoking crack cocaine. That's it. You don't smoke marijuana like that. You don't smoke methamphetamine or crank like that. It's just for crack cocaine because it's not water soluble, which means it doesn't dissolve in your mouth and stuff like that. Cocaine hydrochloride, it can be absorbed in the body. Cocaine base has to be smoked. So raw cocaine has to be smoked. Cocaine, which is the powder, they can snort it, they can inject it in their veins, they can smoke it, they can eat it, they can do whatever. You guys paying attention out here? You kids? All right. Methamphetamine, this is really common nowadays. Methamphetamine became really popular. Everybody thought that methamphetamine was started by the Hells Angels 30, 40, 50 years ago. It was actually before that the military was using it with military pilots to keep them awake. It's no longer made for the most part here in California. Up until about 2001, 2002, methamphetamine was made a lot in Contra Costa County, the Bay Area, and California. Now the chemicals have been banned. The glassware to make the drug have been banned. They pretty much make it in Mexico. That's just what they do, and they make a lot of it. It's widely abused amphetamine. This is how you make it. This is what it looks like. Not like cocaine, which was like a powder. It almost looks like, what would you guys say it looks like? Crystal. That's a term for it. They call it crystal methamphetamine. These are very, very small pieces or shards. They get quite a bit bigger than that. Like this. Bigger pieces. Each one of those is a pound. And they normally package them up in gallon-sized bags. You see those are gallon-sized Ziploc bags. Those pounds, 10 years ago, used to go for $8,000, $9,000 a pound. You can buy a pound now for $3,000 or $4,000. The prices have really dropped because there's so much of it out there. Packaging, don't even worry about packaging, Ziploc bags and stuff. You can smoke it, you can snort it, you can inject it, you can eat it. Okay? We can go through that. We don't need to worry about that. It lasts really long. Some of these people that you see that are acting really hyper and weird, and we call it tweaking. When they're tweaking, they're acting really weird. You see people acting like that. Sometimes it's because they've been up for 2, 3, 4, 5 days without sleeping. This drug will do that for them. This drug will keep them awake for a long period of time. Sometimes it makes their skin get acne and stuff like that, but the most common thing is paranoia, no sleep, and they act really, really bizarre. This is a methamphetamine pipe. This is just used to smoke methamphetamine. Okay? They make this out of a pipe, and they just smoke it with methamphetamine. No filters, no nothing, just like that. This is just for you guys to recognize what this stuff is, okay? It's okay, we don't need to worry about that. Methamphetamine use, here she is, and she doesn't look so good on the bottom. This stuff is really bad. It just beats up your body, okay? It's a great weight loss. Those of you that want to lose weight, it's illegal. I'm just teasing. It's really, really bad. Most people I know that have used methamphetamine, I worked in the jail a lot. I worked in the jail for 6 or 7 years, so I saw all the inmates when they would come in and when they would leave, and then when they come in like a month or 2 later, they were heavier and or lighter most of the time because they've been using the drug. They come into jail, they eat properly and take care of themselves and get healthy again. 2 months later, they get released and they go right back to the drug and they lose their weight, and they lose their teeth and everything else. Severe, bad teeth. We don't know if it's not from taking care of their teeth, hygiene, brushing their teeth like they're supposed to, or if the chemicals in the drug cause that. I tend to believe that they're not taking care of themselves, and that's why this person's teeth look that bad. But I've seen a lot of methamphetamine users with really, really bad hygiene. Another girl is using drugs. Another guy. Another methamphetamine pipe. That's dried or burnt methamphetamine, that brown area right there, that's actually the drug. This is different pipes, and they like to use these torches to heat up the methamphetamine. Not just a regular lighter. A heavy user of methamphetamine likes to use those torches that blows a blue flame. It's hotter flame. Just different stuff out there that they use for methamphetamine. Again, they call it ice or crystal methamphetamine. MDMA, ecstasy. There's a lot of it out there still, not quite as popular as it was 10 years ago, but it's still out there. Street slang, here's some terms for it. Ecstasy, atom, X, beans, there's a lot of different terms for it. We don't see that very much. I don't see very much MDMA, ecstasy anymore in San Ramon and this immediate area. Once in a great while we'll find a few pills, but not like we did 10 years ago. Poppin' Molly, that's a term for it. If you kids like to listen to Little Wheezy, anybody know who Little Wheezy is? Lil Wayne, those guys? That's all he talks about is this kind of stuff. Poppin' Molly and promethazine, drinking, sipping syrup, all those kind of things. Narcotic analgesics, opiates are narcotic pain relievers. Your body gets addicted to this stuff. If anybody has ever had a surgery or been injured and you start using pain medicine, Norco, Vicodin, Percodan, any of those, they're addicting drugs. And after a while, you have to wean yourself off it because your body gets used to it. This is a kit, similar to this one right here. It's called a HYPE kit. This is an intravenous drug user. He would put the drug in his vein. He used to tie it off with the rubber band here, put it in the spoon, liquefy it, put it in the syringe, and then put it into his vein. It would hit his system within about 8 to 10 seconds, and he would feel that rush, whether it was cocaine or methamphetamine or heroin. They could use all three of those drugs with a syringe. What we're seeing now commonly is the kids are using heroin, they're switching up and they're going to the needles after a while of using the other drug. Opiates come from two sources, opium poppy plant or the synthetic form. Demerol, methadone, Dilaudid, Vicodin, Percodan. They're the same thing. They're opium-based stuff. Human body produces endorphins, which have similar qualities to opiates, i.e. they relieve your pain. One of the most commonly abused opiates is heroin. Heroin is made from morphine, which is made directly from opium. It's an opium plant not grown here in the United States. Grown in Afghanistan, different countries, and produced and shipped here. This is the mostly widely used drug of all the opiates. It's water soluble, can cause the least amount of skin trauma, stays active in the body longer than other opiates. You can smoke it. If you ever see tinfoil like this, and a lighter or matches, or if you see burnt pieces of tinfoil, about this size, a lot of people are smoking the pills. They'll take pills or they'll take heroin and they'll heat it up. It'll turn to a vapor and they will smoke it. They'll commonly use a straw for drinking out of a drink. They'll use a straw, put that in their mouth, and once it turns to a vapor, they will inhale that with the straw. So look for tinfoil, lighters, straws. If you see burnt tinfoil, that's a telltale sign of somebody probably using either pills that they've chopped up or powder heroin. Okay? Two different forms. China white on the right, and this is over here Mexican brown powder heroin. This is a powder heroin. This heroin is the most addicting drug, in my opinion. 27 years of being a cop, I've seen heroin addicts, I've seen crack cocaine addicts, I've seen marijuana addicts, right? The worst one is the heroin. Those people, when they come into the jail, if they don't get that drug in their body every single day, they will become violently sick. You've all had the flu, you've all had diarrhea and vomiting and all that unpleasant stuff. That's what they get every single day that they don't use this drug. So they're out there acting as prostitutes, they're stealing, they're doing whatever to get money to buy the drug so they don't get sick. Okay? Bad stuff. And the kids nowadays are starting off with the pills. Oxycodone, Oxycontin, Norco, they start with those because it's just a pill. Next thing you know, they want to get higher and higher, and they end up switching up to this drug right here, and this is probably the worst out there. You have to use this with a syringe. With syringes come infections and different people using it. Lots of issues with it. Different way it's packaged, tinfoil, balloons, saran wrap. The balloons will protect it. They can put 2 or 3 in their mouth. A drug dealer will put 2 or 3 or 5 in their mouth, and if they're contacted by law enforcement, what do? Swallow it. It's in a balloon. Pass it through. Take it back out the next day and sell it. I know, it sounds pretty bad, but that's what they do. Okay, next one. Again, powder cocaine. I'm sorry, powder heroin. Injecting is the most common way to put it in the body. You saw the kit, so we don't need to go into that. We don't need to go into that. Different syringes, that's a crack pipe. This is a common way to liquefy the heroin. That heroin you saw was brown, looked like a Tootsie Roll, almost like candy. That was called tar heroin. That's different than the powder heroin. A lot of times they'll liquefy it in this spoon with a little bit of water, heat it up a little bit, let it turn to a liquid, put that into a syringe, put it in their vein. I'll show you a video before we get out of here. You're not gonna like it, but it's a heroin addict putting drugs into her body. That's okay, we go faster through that. This is how they do it. Pull the drug in the syringe and put it in their body. A couple different ways of putting it in your body, different ways of injecting it. 5 to 10 seconds, that's how fast the drug hits you. Here are some recent injection sites. Most commonly, drug users will start off with their veins here in their arms. They'll have track marks. You'll see a lot of scars right here. And after doing this for a long time, these syringes are supposed to be used by insulin-dependent people, and they're supposed to be one-time use, and you throw them away. Drug addicts don't have the money to buy numerous syringes, so they'll use them, and they'll use them, and they'll share them. And after a while, they become dull. They're supposed to be really sharp and pointed. After a while, they become dull, and they cause trauma to the skin every single time that they inject. And then that causes problems with their veins. After a while, their veins get what they call shot. You don't have any more veins in your arms. So they look for other parts of their body for veins. Jugular, okay. Private parts, between toes, between fingers, wherever they can get the drug. Heroin is horrible. Next one. This is a flesh-eating virus. This was real common up until about 10 years ago. I haven't seen it lately. But the drug was really bad being brought across from Mexico, and it would cause this kind of trauma, where they had to go in and perform surgery and take all the muscle and the skin out. It was called flesh-eating virus. This was a bad infection here. This next person has a big chunk of her arm removed. I was in the jail years ago. I had to stand there and watch an inmate go to the hospital and get a lot of his arm removed like that because he just came back from San Quentin prison where he had just injected some heroin, some bad heroin. He got an infection and lost his arm just like this, almost all his arm. Marijuana. Okay, enough of heroin. Heroin is horrible, right? Marijuana, it's everywhere, right? You can buy these all day long in the store. This is not illegal to possess. I can't arrest anybody for this, okay? That's what the law says. In California this year, in November, we're going to go to a vote, like we did, was it 2 years ago, 4 years ago? We're going to go to a vote. Are we going to be like Colorado? Are we going to be like Washington? Is it Oregon? Is Alaska? No, just Oregon? Yeah. So are we going to follow their footsteps and start allowing everybody to smoke marijuana? I have 3 kids. I told my kids since day one, marijuana, you've heard it before. Some of you kids are like, oh, I've heard this before. It's a gateway drug, in my opinion. You start using marijuana, you might start dabbling in something else, and before you know it, you've switched up to heroin, the worst of all of them, and your life is over, okay? So marijuana is a bad drug. A lot of people think it's just medicine. You know, it was approved with the act about 15 years ago for cancer patients and people that really needed something to fight the pain and help them eat better and all that stuff. It was not set up for the way it's abused now. We got 19, 20-year-old kids with, oh, I hurt my finger, doctor, can I get a prescription for marijuana? He gets a marijuana card. He can smoke marijuana. He can have marijuana in his pockets and in his car because he's got that card. It's abused. So it was set up for something entirely different. Unfortunately, it's been abused. But this is marijuana. Different terms for it. This is a long bud right here. It's plant material. It's a weed. That's why they call it a weed. Who can pronounce that? Some of you kids, come on. Delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. Come on. Yeah, that's marijuana. THC, it's within the marijuana. Camarinol, also known as dronabinol, is a synthetic form of THC. It's used to medically treat patients. Marijuana packaging, it's all the same. Coin baggies, sandwich baggies, stuff like that. That's a lot of marijuana. That's 1 pound in each one of those bags. That could go for anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 or $4,000. You ship that back to the East Coast, and it's worth a lot more money than it is here in California. So a lot of people were growing it here in California, shipping it back east and doubling their money. There's a joint, marijuana. Here are zigzags. You see those all in the liquor stores. More pipes. A blunt. A blunt is basically it's a cigar with marijuana inside of it. If you ever heard anybody talking about a blunt, it's a marijuana in the middle of a cigar. Red eyes, dry mouth, odor. Everybody knows what marijuana smells like? What's it smell like? Well, I'm here a little bit. What's it smell like? Skunk. It smells like skunk. If you're at a party, you're in a park, you're somewhere, and you're like, that smells like a skunk. It's probably someone smoking marijuana. Okay. Depressants. I'll let you talk about those because you're going to talk about some of those. Pills and stuff. I'll let you talk about the Xanax and all that stuff out there. Inhalants. There are people that inhale different stuff. Nitrous oxide, all kinds of stuff. We'll go through these real quick. Those are the things for computer keys and stuff. We'll go through that. Glue sniffing, stay away from it. Paint huffing, there's people that huff paint. Silver spray paint, gold spray paint. If you go on the internet, you can see people with silver and gold all over their face because they put a bag around, they inhale the paint. It's terrible. Okay, we'll go through that. Nitrous oxide. These are whippets. These are being sold. The whippet, if you go back. It's nitrous oxide, like a CO2 container, but it's nitrous oxide. They were selling the CO2 canister. This device here, which screws together, is called a cracker, and this balloon connects to it. You turn this so far, it pokes a hole in this end and it inflates this with nitrous oxide, and the kids were inhaling that. I found one of our head shops that sells these, selling those about a year ago, and I told them you better get rid of that because it's against the law. So that's nitrous oxide. Sipping syrup, right? Cough syrup. Lil Wayne, if anybody knows about Lil Wayne, that's all he talks about, or he used to. He almost died a couple years ago of an overdose. Promethazine, codeine, sipping. 1 in 5 teens is a beauty. I'll let you go over all that. What's in the cabinet? You're probably going to go over that too. Different ecstasy pills again. If you see, go back. If you see pills that look like this, that look really cool, look really pretty, with shells and a Nike swoosh and a heart and a dove, that's not a real drug. Those are illegally made, right? In someone's garage or someone's shop. Those are not made and manufactured by a pharmacy somewhere or a company somewhere. Okay? These are all illegal. So you see pills that have cool little logos, they're illegal. You can go through that one. Cultivating, growing marijuana, we'll go through this kind of quickly just to show you. This is an indoor marijuana grow, very common. I did 2 of these about 3 months ago, one in Dublin and one in San Ramon. They're both connected, and this wasn't the picture from it, but I did that, and they're all over the place. Lots of marijuana plants. They're no longer growing them in the backyard or in the fields. They still are, but they're now growing them inside the homes. It takes a lot of electricity to do that, and they're doing that a lot. And there's an art to it. They keep the male plants separate from the female plants. They do all kinds of stuff with fertilizers, and they make a lot of money. There's a lot of money to be made from growing marijuana and selling it. This is how the houses are set up. You ever see this inside of a house? Turn around, walk out, and then call me. Because I want to come over there and arrest those people. You know my number, right? No. You know my number? What's my number? 911. Anybody, that's it. Okay, so and this we go back. This is what they. One more back. This is basically in a house in a garage. You see all wiring and stuff like this with the ventilation. There's something going on there. They're probably growing marijuana, and you won't know it because it doesn't smell very strong. It doesn't smell like skunk, like burned marijuana. Growing marijuana, live marijuana plants don't really smell that strong, not like burnt marijuana does. So you may not know it. They may be living in the downstairs and the whole upstairs. Oh yeah, you can't go upstairs. Can't go upstairs, guys. Dogs up there. Well, they might be growing marijuana up there, so just be aware of that. Hash oil, dabs, honey oil wax. Anybody hear about this stuff? Very common nowadays. They manufacture this. They make this out of marijuana leaves. When you smoke marijuana, you smoke the buds. When you make this stuff, I'll show you a photograph in a second, they actually use butane lighter fluid. The butane lighter fluid they push through the leaves of the plant, just those two ingredients, and it turns into that. And then they'll smoke that, they call it wax, or honey oil, or dabs. Those are just different terms for it that we hear out here. And it's really, really against the law to manufacture that stuff. So electronic cigarettes, they can take that honey oil, they can put it in electronic cigarettes. You wouldn't know it. It may smell a little bit different, but they can actually put that in electronic cigarettes nowadays, and a lot of people don't know. This is how they actually make it. They take a piece of PVC pipe, that is butane lighter fluid on the right, the yellow canister. They push it through, all the liquid from the butane goes through that pipe, comes out this end. They'll put that, this is a big pie dish, a baking dish right here. They'll put it in there and let it dry out. Move it around the razor, and after a few hours of drying it out, it turns into a real sticky, like you saw that last picture, of honey oil, or dabs, or whatever you want to call it, okay? That's real common nowadays, so be aware of that. Okay, questions and answers. Or question, you guys have any questions at all? For a few minutes, I have to go down to Bakersfield tonight and go with the rest of Vegas.
So a couple questions. First, I remember a few years ago, I was after New Year party, I was on the bar. I smelled someone smoke marijuana. So what can I do?
Well, like I said, that guy might have a marijuana card. The way the law is, if someone's smoking marijuana in public, we as law enforcement, we can't do very much, right? We can't do very much. The guy might have a card. He's supposed to smoke that somewhere else other than that. If he's on BART, notify BART PD. They might be able to do something. I'm sure they've got some rules and regulations about smoking marijuana on BART train. But in general public, they can't do it in the parks, right? They're supposed to do it in their home. So if you have a medicinal marijuana card, you're allowed to smoke marijuana in your home. Unless you belong to one of our apartment communities and they're getting money from the state to live there, or the government, you can't do that, but it's bad. I have neighbors that smoke it. I smoke all the time in my neighborhood, but there's not a whole lot you can do about it because they've got the card that says that they can. So, yeah.
What is the common use in high school kids and college kids for all those illegal drugs?
Depends on which school they're going to. Santa Mona, well, we have a lot of pill use. We have a lot of OxyContin. A lot of the kids using those kinds of drugs. She'll talk about that. She works with the school, so she can tell you all about that, but it's everywhere. What I tell parents is be involved in everything. Don't be a helicopter parent. I hate that term, helicopter parent. I was a helicopter parent. I got 3 kids. I didn't let them out of my sight because, unfortunately, I've seen the bad stuff that happens to kids, right? So I was to make sure that they never were to screw up. So you'll notice if your kid, you have a teenage kid, if they're acting different. If your kid was high or drunk or toxic, you're going to know because you always are in contact with your kid. Right? So always be involved in their life, always check them before they go to bed at the end of the night, not check on them, hey, follow my finger. No, not that stuff. Not that stuff, but check them to make sure, hey, you okay, good, okay, see you tomorrow. Hey, you don't look right, what's going on? You know, so just keep an eye on those kids because there is stuff everywhere, right? And tell them, hey, stay away from that stuff. You're a better person for turning around and leaving and not getting involved in that stuff. Just tell them that. Yeah?
So growing marijuana is illegal, right?
Growing marijuana is not illegal, unfortunately. You can, in Santa Mona, you can't do it. We get
acid in the local circulation.
Oh yeah, with, hydroponics,
Yeah.
we'll sell you lights, we'll sell you we don't have any in Santa Mona, but I know other parts of the county, there are stores all over the place that sell lights, all the equipment necessary. They just can't sell you the seeds to grow the marijuana. In Santa Mona, you can't do it. Different cities adopt different municipal codes preventing it. You can't do it. But in other parts of the county, listen, I've been to marijuana grows. I've been to a 100-plant marijuana grow. There was 100 plants in his backyard. He had paper showing that he's a caregiver for 10 people. He had another piece of paper, his friend was growing 10 more plants for another person. So there's ways around it. You shouldn't grow marijuana. It's up to the district attorney's office to decide which cases they'll file on and which ones they won't. I just like to tell people that if you grow marijuana, I'm going to arrest you, but sometimes that's not true. You know, if you're growing 100 plants, you're going to jail. Normally, especially in San Ramon. You have one plant, plant on the side of your house, and you've got a card. I don't know if, I know for a fact the district attorney's office, and you kids, close your ears. You adults, the district attorney's office will probably not file on 2 or 3 plants. They won't. Especially if the guys have a marijuana card. Hey, I'm just going for my personal being. I want to make sure that I have enough marijuana. My doctor said I can grow up to 3 pounds a year. The doctors will do that, but it's a sore subject. What else?
So I heard about there's a number like 75% of the high school students have ever used the drug at least once. Is that not? I mean, they
She's better at that than I am. But a lot of the kids, there are statistics all over the place. You know, how many high school kids under the age of 15 have tried marijuana? There's a lot of percentages. I don't know those. Do you know those?
You know, there's a perception that it's really high, but you know, the national studies say like at 9 and 10, you know, 10 and 12, whatever grades, it's actually only maybe in the 15 to 25% range, depending on the type of drug. It feels as though, and you know, it's the kids talking about it, so you kind of get the feeling that it's all over the place, but it's supposedly not as bad as the perception is, let's just say. But even 20% of the students, it's not a lot of students, right?
Yeah, well, I had 4, so I could.
No, it really isn't.
Okay, any other questions, guys? Yes, one more.
What's the most common stuff you're seeing these days, prescription drug-wise in the street, in addition to just oxycodone,
Xanax. A lot of Xanax. I'm working with the DEA task force. A lot of the Xanax nowadays is not real. It's not made at the labs. It's made by, like I said, in garages, in barns, and whatever else. We bought, in the last 2 months, we've bought from a particular criminal in Alameda County about 6,000 pills. We bought 2,000 one day. A couple weeks later, we bought 2,000 more Xanax pills. And they go for anywhere from $10, $15, $20 a piece, depending on how many you buy. There's a lot of them. I arrested a guy in San Ramon a year and a half ago. He had 100 Xanaxes. He was selling them to kids out of his house. And I did some surveillance, watched the cars show up, and I pulled the cars over. Anyway, so Xanax is fairly common out here as well. Yeah.
Sorry, you mentioned a video, but you didn't show it.
I'm sorry, I mentioned what?
You mentioned a video.
Oh, the video. You want to see the heroin video? I'm just going to show you the heroin video. Yeah. Okay, it's drug videos. Drug videos. Let's go to. I'm going to show you 2 real quick, if I could. Oxy-addiction. OxyContin. Let's see if it plays. May not play a new system home. This is of a young man that is an OxyContin user, and his whole life is just messed up. He's spending all of his money. It's unfortunate because a lot of the kids start to use OxyContin, different pills, and it's actually more expensive to use those pills than it is to use heroin. Okay, which doesn't make sense. So if they don't have the money to use, ingest a pill, whether chop it up and smoke it, or snort it, or put it in their vein, they'll go to a cheaper drug, which is heroin, and that's really, really bad. And the other video was a woman that was a heroin addict that is a prostitute, and she sells herself just to support herself. She spends, I think, $150 a day on her heroin. How much is that a week? 1,000? Somewhere around $1,000 a week. That's $4,000 a month, right? That's a lot, right? That's a lot of stealing. That's a lot of whatever for that. And she only does it to stay well. What that means is she doesn't get sick anymore. She doesn't have to go through the withdrawals. She just does it so she doesn't get sick. I don't think we're anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes.
So do you see them going from Xanax to painkillers?
What do you think?
That's what we've been.
No, they take them often together, but I don't see that one transitions to the together so much.
Yeah, two different,
Yeah, I was wondering what you were saying, difference.
yeah, I don't think so. Andy, what do you think? No?
No,
That's okay, don't worry. I gotta go to Bakersfield, I got things to do.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't stay longer, guys.
Flyer we can get later, distribute later.
Just
Thank you so
two.
much. That's
You're
very
welcome.
important.
And you guys, if you need me, call, if you need me, I'm at the police department here in San Ramon. You can find my name and call me if you need any advice, parents, you need any advice or help with something, feel free to call me. How much do I owe you? Oh, no, the business card, I'm sorry.
Do you need help?
No, no, I got it.
So let's move on. Before I introduce April, I have a quick question. Do you know what's special about March? Any special thing about March? Actually, March is the California Prescription Drug Abusing Awareness Month this month. So it was established, I think, approved by Governor Jerry Brown in 2013. So this month is the drug awareness month. So that's why in the community effort we try to raise awareness through community seminar, different action. That's one of the purpose. So let me introduce our next speaker, April Revero. She is a founder of NCAPDA, right? Yeah, national coalition against the prescription drug abuse. Yeah, sorry. So she used to work as a program director in Lancet for 8 years. And she retired. However, I want to mention a sad story about her. In 2009, her son suddenly lost her life because of prescription drug misusing. So the next day, he's supposed to go home for winter break. However, he passed away because he got some drug from a doctor misusing. However, April really take her great courage and take the responsibility, establish found the NCAPDA. That she take very active in this organization, you're the founder, and try to raise awareness of prescription drug abusing issues. So she's going to share us her story, personal story, and then her expertise through 5 years working in this organization and other coalition. She really dedicated that for the community to raise the awareness. She lives in San Ramon, by the way, very close, approachable. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I think I will use this because my voice doesn't travel as well as the officer's does, so we'll go ahead and do this. So let's see if this works. I did found the organization back in 2010. It was just 3 or 4 months after my son passed away that I really realized that we weren't alone in the fact that we knew nothing about prescription drugs and how people can recreationally use them, how you could get hooked on them and move over to heroin, as the officer had mentioned. This was all absolutely a shock to us when we found that we learned that Joey had passed away from this situation. We moved up here from Los Angeles in, I think, 1996, when Joey was moving into elementary school, 3rd grade. So he went to, Bollinger Hills Elementary School. He moved over to Iron Horse Middle School from there. And then he went to Cal High. And so all along the way, he was playing sports. He loves soccer. He started playing soccer when he was only 4 years old. And by the time he was in 7th grade, he was playing at a very high level within in the soccer world. We used to travel all over, California to tournaments and into Arizona. And he was a great player. About 8th grade, though, he decided he wanted to move over to football. So, okay, you're big enough now, and hopefully you won't get run over, so okay. We let him play football. And he was a great football player. He played for the T-Birds in 8th grade, and then in high school, he just moved right into the full swing of things. He played as a starter throughout his entire 4 years. They had him playing both offensive and defensive positions. So he didn't sit on the bench very much at all. He was good in both of those environments. So, you know, it just, we could not have been more shocked when this horrible thing happened to us. Joey had been a great kid. We had had an easy time with him compared to my sister and her two girls, you know, trying to get her through those teenage years. And we often commented, my husband and I, to ourselves that, you know, based on everybody else and what we were seeing with other children and, you know, other family members, we felt fortunate that we hadn't had any problems with him. Joey was on the dean's list at Arizona State University when he went off to school, you know, he was doing, you know, there was absolutely no indication of any trouble. He came home, though, 3 weeks before he passed away for Thanksgiving break, and he was just with us for the, you know, 2 or 3 days that Thanksgiving was going on, and my husband and I and Joey, and it was the first time ever that just the three of us had had Thanksgiving dinner together. Usually it was a bigger part of our family. My other son lives up here in San Ramon too, but he had to go to his in-laws that time. And so it was just Joey and my husband and I remember talking to Joey about his roommate situation. He had a couple of boys that he had moved in with that were fraternity brothers and classmates, of course, you know, all ASU students that he had moved in with in August. And he, by November, was really concerned because they had stopped paying the rent. They paid for the first month and that was it. They weren't paying any of the expenses and it was all on him. He had had a good job over the summer and he always worked, you know, he came home from breaks and always had a job and made money and saved it for the next school year, you know, for his personal expenses. And so his money was going out the door really fast because he was paying for everybody. And so we had a, you know, whole conversation about, well, do you want us to call their parents? This isn't acceptable. They have to carry their weight. And Joey said, no, I'll go back and talk to him again. He'd already talked to them, but he didn't want us to get involved. At that point, he's 21 years old, and we're thinking he's an adult, right? You know, you think of him as kind of an adult. They're supposed to be an adult, and you're trying to give them a little bit of, you know, freedom to grow into that. So we said, okay, well, we're here if you need us, you know, not to pay more money, but if you need us to help with, you know, this situation with your roommates, let us know, and we'll happily call their parents. Well, looking back now, I sure wish I had, because I had no idea really what he was saying, you know, what it meant for him to say that these two young men had an addiction problem to pills. I didn't really take it seriously as I should have, because as the police officer just shared, you know, once you have an addiction to these painkillers, and that was what it was, Xanax and painkillers, you do not escape very easily at all. You know, it's going to take more than a conversation from, you know, with a roommate to change that position. So anyway, Joey goes back, you know, after Thanksgiving, and I will tell you, the very last time I saw and talked to Joey was as he was heading back to college that, you know, I think it was on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and, you know, I gave him a hug, we hugged each other, I said, you know, be safe, let me know when you get back home. I love you. Those were my last words to him. So anyway, he goes off to college, and then basically 9 days later, he went to a doctor that, you know, he had absolutely no knowledge of. He didn't use his insurance card, which he, of course, he was fully covered under our insurance plan, but he basically went to this doctor with a couple of other guys. And let's see, this is my organization, and I usually have Joey up here first. That is him. And so what he did is he went to this doctor in Los Angeles, and she was a doctor who we learned pretty quickly was a dirty doctor. She had been doling out medication prescriptions for about 3-4 years by the time Joey went in to see her. And she basically just, you came in with any kind of lame excuse and you got a prescription for really heavy duty painkillers, high dosages, high quantities. She was having patients come to her from all over Southern California, some from Orange County, Riverside County, LA County. She was like the hub. She was the drug dealer, seriously. And, you know, how in the world could our son have gotten caught up in this? Well, he ended up going out with some friends. He just happened to run into at a bar or restaurant close to campus there. And he learned that they were headed to see this doctor in just a few hours. So, you know, here he has this financial situation. It's not resolved. His roommates are still not paying for anything. And so basically his solution for that, with this immature, you know, not complete brain, because they aren't completely, you know, finished in their development of brains until you get to be about 25, 26 years old at best. He just decides this is his out. He's going to go to work, he can get these pills, he can come back and sell them really easily. So for this 9 days after, he gets his pills, he's actually giving them to his roommates. He's basically selling them to get the money to support them there. And it was super easy because what we also learned was in his college environment, it was just rampant. He was a fraternity member, and within his fraternity environment, these guys were just, that was how they partied, along with alcohol and who knows what else. But pills were definitely in the mix. So it took no time at all for him to get rid of these pills. It really was the case. Now, along the way, of course, he started taking a few of them. So when we got the toxicology report back and the coroner's report, and it took us 4.5 months to get that back from the coroner there in Arizona, we learned that all he had in his system was basically the equivalent of 1 Xanax pill, about 1.5 pills of oxycodone, which was a painkiller he was prescribed. And he'd been drinking. It was a college party. They just finished their finals, and so they were in celebration mode. One of their friends had just had a birthday, or he had a birthday going on. Another one was graduating early in December. So for 2 days after they finished finals, they were partying. So he was just over the legal limit for driving for alcohol, along with the 1 pill of Xanax and about 1.5 pills of oxycodone. We were shocked. The coroner, we literally had a conversation with her, and she let us know that this is not the typical thing they see. Usually when somebody overdoses and dies, it's with a lot more pills, a lot more medication or substances on board. For Joey, that night though, that was enough to shut down his breathing. He went to sleep that night and he just didn't wake up. And that's what often happens. That's typically what happens with people who overdose from pills. They just go to sleep and that's it. They don't know what hit them. So, and that often happens, of course, at home. I felt so, if he was going to have to die, I was sure glad that he didn't die in my own home. I know a lot of parents where they've gotten up in the morning and they go to wake up their kids and it's too late. They have no idea the kid has died. So we've learned that this is a rampant problem, and shame on us if we don't speak out. That's how we felt. Our family felt immediately that we needed to share everything that happened to our family so that other families hopefully can learn from it and not go through this. It's just devastating to lose a child. He had such promise, great kid, and yet he's gone. And all those things we should have experienced with him were cut short right at 21 years old. Well, there are consequences for the doctor also. So unbeknownst to us, we learned this afterwards, of course, too. This doctor had been under investigation by the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, for at least 3 years before my son even walked in the door. They were building a case against her. She had already lost, at that point, when Joey went to see her, she'd lost 9 patients. She eight of them. He was the 9th. That basically became part of the trial, although we heard on the side that she's been responsible for at least 19 patient deaths, the way she was prescribing to them. So what happened to her was she was arrested about 2.5 years after Joey died. She was charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder. One of them was Joey, and the other 2 boys were in their 20s also that she was charged with. And then 5 other young men that had died were part of the case, but it was an illegal prescribing count against them, related to them. And what the DA, the district attorney, said was basically she knew what she was doing. Her patients kept dying. They came in the door, they got prescribed, they kept dying. She kept getting notified by the coroner's office for these different counties that, what was going on. These people were, going, let us see the medical records. It didn't change her behavior, she just kept doing it. So because of that, they felt there was malice, and that's the difference between a second-degree charge and a manslaughter charge. So this ended up being a landmark case. This case is resonating right now throughout the medical community. They know that the potential is there for them to also be treated in this way if they are prescribing and somebody dies, if they haven't done the proper job. She was an outlier. She was not doing her job. She wasn't doing a full exam. She wasn't checking our cures, our prescription drug monitoring program. Joey went in and said, I'm taking 80 milligrams strength Oxycontin, which is ridiculous. People have to work into that. Your body has to adapt to that kind of high level. Nobody that's that young, it's almost nobody would ever get to an 80 milligram pill, as early as young as he was. And all she had to do was, well, a couple things. She could have called a doctor that he said he was getting them from, which wasn't the case. He had never gotten those before. She could have checked the CURES program, our prescription drug monitoring program, which would have shown there's no history of him ever having these medications. Or she could have done a drug test, just a simple drug screen, urine test. There wouldn't have been anything in the system. So there were just so many failures all along the way. Ultimately, she was sentenced to 30 years. She was convicted of all, let's say 23 out of the 24 charges, all of the murder charges, and then these illegal prescribing ones except for one. And she was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. During the time she was waiting for the trial to unfold, it took about 4 years, and so she has that much credit because she never did bail out of jail. So in 26 years, she'll be eligible for parole, and we'll see what happens. If she lives that long, you never know. Prison is not an easy place to live in. So this is the story. So not only have we had to deal with our son's death, and of course that's challenging every single day. Joey's with me every day because I pretty much talk about this topic every day. Over the last 3 weeks, I've been in 32, I've actually presented to 32 ninth grade health classes. So that's one of the things I do. I'm here talking to you tonight. But earlier today, I was over at San Ramon Valley High. 5 classes over at San Ramon Valley High today. And yesterday, I was over at Dublin High. The day before that, I was over at San Ramon again doing another teacher's classes. And then I was at Monte Vista, Miramonte. So what I try to do is get out in front of our young people to have them understand the dynamics of these pills, to understand that they are not safer than the street drugs that you've heard about. And in fact, we have more people abusing these pills than we have all street drugs altogether. So it's a big problem. So I'm just delighted. This is a really good sized audience for parents to come to. Usually, often we'll have an event, and we may have like as low as 10 people in the audience. I say we need to fill it. We need everybody to have this information because it can be impacting to all of us. The truth is we do have a national epidemic now. How many of you knew that? Have you heard it on the radio, the television, newspapers? A few of you. How many of you have talked to your kids about prescription drug abuse specifically? How many of you? Okay, just like one, right? One, is that it? 2? Okay. In our classrooms, I always ask the kids, how many of you have had a parent or an adult talk to you about prescription drug abuse? And I will tell you it's about the same number. Maybe 1, 2, and typically it'll be parents that are maybe in the law enforcement environment. Their job is to be an officer, or they see it somehow in their job. Or they're maybe a medical professional, and they see it. They work in maybe an emergency department. So bottom line is, they are not getting this information at school unless I'm talking to them by and large, okay? And I can't be everywhere and speak to all these children out there. So we need all of our parents to really understand this so you can talk to your kids. Because it's that important. If they don't understand this, they're thinking that they're safer. They think they can party. If a doctor gives it out, it must be safe. So we need you guys to understand and then really share this information with your kids, and not just once. We need to keep having that conversation. This is how bad it is nationally. We actually had started to go down a little bit in overdose deaths in 2012 and 13. But unfortunately, in 2014, it started ticking up again, and there was a noticeable incline. 2014 was actually the deadliest year on record for overdoses in our country. So over 47,000 deaths, and as you can see, over 18, almost 19,000 of them were for painkillers alone. So that classification of medication is the most dangerous. We see the most deaths from. And so that is the Vicodin, the Percocet, the Oxycontin, Oxycodone, Hydrocodone. And the reason that they think it increased is really right up here. We have heard a lot tonight about heroin abuse. So we're seeing a lot of heroin deaths. And then, in the past, we've seen heroines kind of go down. Our generation kind of grew up and we understood, we learned about heroin. And what we learned really scared us, so we stayed away from it. But now, because there is a lack, I think, of general education about drug abuse in general in our schools, some of our kids, they just don't have a respect for this particular drug. They haven't learned to appreciate how deadly it can be. And the reality is, what we're seeing now with heroin abuse is that it isn't just the heroin. It comes across, and it comes in from Mexico a lot now. They are growing crops of poppies, and they're bringing this stuff. And I don't even know how all this stuff is coming in. Somebody has to be paid off or something. We see heroin coming in and all these other drugs, right? But it is, and it's still infiltrating our communities. We have it here in the San Ramon Valley, and every other community in America is at risk for having it. So heroin is now being, it comes over pure, but what they do is they mix it with things to make it go further so they can sell more. So they may have let's just say a bag of heroin. By the time they add all this stuff to it, it's become a bigger bag of heroin. And it has all kinds of things in it that can be really, really damaging. What we've seen, and the reason for all these deaths increasing over the 2014 timeframe, was fentanyl, which is an extremely potent painkiller, was being added to it. Because as the officer indicated, people that are hooked on this stuff, number one, they just don't want to get dope sick. That's what it's called when you are having withdrawals. And so they'll do anything to get it. Well, they kind of like to get high too. They kind of like to go back to the early days when they were first using this stuff, and that impact to their, on their brain, and that excitement and the euphoria they were feeling was there. So it's really easy for a drug dealer to say, you know what, I've got this really cool heroin. We have some fentanyl in there. It's going to give you that original blast, and of course keep your habit. The withdrawals won't be there, but you'll also get a blast. And so it's really enticing to a drug user, but there's a real thin line between life and death with that particular drug, fentanyl. It is 100 times more potent than OxyContin. And you can imagine, it's just really crazy. So a lot of people are dying, and what will happen is there'll be a batch of it that starts to be sold off, by a particular dealer. And in certain communities back east in particular, we have seen whole communities where we've had maybe over a weekend, many deaths, not just one overdose here or there. It'll be a whole series of them because of this fentanyl being added. And as the officer actually indicated, fentanyl, there is a pharmaceutical grade fentanyl, and it typically will be transmitted through a patch, an epidermal patch, or otherwise they have these lollipops. Well, that's not what they're doing with this. They actually are manufacturing the fentanyl, garage, whatever. And then, so it's not even real fentanyl in terms of pharmaceutical grade, and they're adding it to this heroin. The other story that I want to make sure of is that you see this one, the 1.4 million emergency department visits. What that suggests is that we could have lost a whole lot of other people. 1.4 million people's lives were saved because of probably Narcan or naloxone, which will overturn an overdose to opioids. But those people were at risk at some point, and they may go back home and overdose still, because that means they're active users more than likely. Some of them also don't go home completely intact. So they have an overdose, they can have neurological or physiological problems from that overdose. They can be quadriplegic after. I know two young people that happened to, that will be in a wheelchair for the rest of their lives. Yeah, so it's really serious. And then we now lose more people from overdose deaths than we do from car accidents in our country. And that is just crazy. So of all of the abused drugs out there, the ones here in red are the ones, so 8 out of 14 of the most abused drugs are painkillers or over-the-counter drugs, not the illegals. So that's really crazy. We see Vicodin is the most abused. We have marijuana is right there, but after that we've got Vicodin. That's number one. It's the most prescribed painkiller we've got, and kids are often prescribed it for injuries, for tooth extractions when they have their wisdom teeth out. It's not uncommon for them to be prescribed these medications, which I'm truly horrified by, because that's giving a young person their first legal high, and it may be really seductive. They may like the way they feel. I've had people who've developed an addiction let me know, and many of them, that it was that first dose of Vicodin or Percocet or whatever they were prescribed for an injury, or the tooth extraction, that sent them down the road of no return. Really, it's pretty sad. So that's the reality, and this is what it looks like on a county level. So at a national level, it was thousands, but 624 people. Those are 624 people who have lost a whole circle of friends and family that love them. That's how I think about it. It's still a lot of people. At the local level, here's what we look at like in San Ramon Valley. These are prescription drug related deaths. Some of them may have included, illegal drugs mixed with the prescription drugs, but prescription drugs were involved in all those. And please note the age, the average age. We kind of tend to think, oh, it's just those crazy teens, right? They're abusing this stuff. But the truth is, and this is true across the country, it's 35 to 55-year-old people that we're seeing pass away more frequently from overdoses. And the phenomenon is you go to the doctor because of a normal, medical issue. You get prescribed, you're taking it because the doctor knows best, right? You trust them. But these drugs can be highly addictive and you get caught up in it and you can overdose. If you happen to have a glass of wine or two with dinner and you're taking these medications, that could be the end for you. You've got to be so careful. So the mixture is really what can really do you in. And we do have more males than females, and truthfully, it is the white or the Caucasian male that we're seeing as the highest risk category of people. I don't know why that is. I know there's some studies being done to try to figure that out, but that demographic is really the heaviest hit. Lots of influences. We have the media, the police officer mentioned the music that young people can listen to. When Joey died, there was a song out that was called Oxycontin. And somebody said, April, you've got to listen to the song. This is just awful. I listened to it and I just remember crying. I couldn't believe that an artist, a musical artist could be so, just so crazy. He was talking about rolling with like 8 oxys or whatever crazy number it was. I mean, Joey died from 1.5 and he had just crazy language in this thing. And it was a tune that was, you didn't listen to the words. It was kind of enticing, a little rap thing going on. But, I mean, this is what our kids are listening to. We also understand that there's a new song out, and I wish I could remember the artist. I was just told this the other day by one of our kids. There's a new song out that's all about Oxycontin, too. And it just glorifies, pill taking and makes it seem like it's fun and normal. Pharmaceutical companies, we can't avoid the commercials. There's just one after another on almost any program you watch on television. During prime time, it's one after another. And they're all telling you, go ask your doctor, is this drug right for you? That's a problem. We also have physicians that are just plain overprescribing. Dr. Sang was just a complete outlier. We have other dirty doctors out there, she's not alone. But it's few and far between. But on the other hand, we do have regular doctors that are over-treating, from my perspective and many others. Basically, here's a injured finger and you get 60 days or 30 days worth of Oxycontin. That's maybe an extreme, but that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's over-treating with drugs that are potentially very, very dangerous and addictive. And then it all is driven by money. It drives our country, and this is absolutely true for this too. The common misconception that definitely kids get involved with, and I'm sure fed into my son and what happened to him, is that these drugs are safer. Especially if you've got a legitimate prescription, and he did, even though she shouldn't have given it to him. He had a prescription, and so it wouldn't have been illegal for him to take the medications, even though he didn't really need them. But they're just as deadly, potentially, and addictive and illegal as any street drugs out there. We do a little exercise in the classrooms when I'm with the kids, and it's really interesting to see it unfold. Adderall is being heavily abused, and especially in our high-performing schools out here in the San Ramon Valley. So be on the lookout for this, and this can be your really, really good student that just wants to continue building towards, applying for and getting into Stanford or some of these other colleges. They want to study those long hours, and they're using Adderall or Ritalin to do it. Adderall seems to be the drug of choice more so than Ritalin. I don't know why, but Adderall, there's a huge problem on our high school campuses as well as college campuses. So this is not somebody that has ADHD, quite the opposite. It is a student who may be preying on, in fact, those students that do have it, that it is prescribed for ADHD. And they're going up to him saying, hey, can I buy an Adderall pill for you? I've got to study, I've got to do good on this test. A lot of pressure, and it may come from you as parents. It may come just internally from themselves. But one way or the other, they are looking to get a good grade, and they'll do anything to get it. And it's generally thought these pills are not a problem. It's just like super caffeine. But that isn't the case. They can be quite dangerous. So we do a little exercise where I have one kid say, okay, you're the kid with ADHD and you're the kid that doesn't have it, but you need the pills, and let's see how you work that out. And so anyway, it gives us a good opportunity to talk about that phenomenon and really discuss how dangerous it is, and to let them know that if you give or sell your medication to somebody else, just trying to be a good friend, it is a felony. It is there can be serious consequences. And we talk about what if that kid that wants your Adderall has a medical condition and they're being treated with some kind of medication. All of a sudden you're giving them another medication on top of it. You have no idea what's going to happen. Nobody does. There could be a counter, some kind of a counter problem, and they could be in serious trouble. As you'll see in another slide, their heartbeat can go up, all kinds of things can happen. They can have a heart attack. You've given it to them, you're in trouble. It's a felony anyway, just to give it or sell it, much less if something happens to them. And then taking it if you don't have a prescription, so that other kid has committed a misdemeanor. It used to be a felony until we passed, I think it was Proposition 46 or 7 recently, about a year and a half ago, and now we kind of decriminalized some of this possession stuff, and it's not quite as bad, but I let them know that it is illegal that way too. And these are the consequences. They also talk about driving under the influence and the fact that driving under the influence of pills is just as potentially dangerous because you can be impaired from a lot of these medications, and it's just as bad as alcohol. And everybody knows you can't drink and drive, but a lot of them don't really get yet that you can't take these medications, even if you're prescribed them, and drive under the influence. So this is a reality. We are not just seeing it. You know, I could show you 350 pictures that I have of young people who have passed away from prescription drugs throughout the country. You would look at these pictures and say, what? This can't be. They are beautiful young faces. They are not the perception that many people have had, me included 6 years ago, where, you know, it's just the really sketchy people, they're the ones living under the bridge, you know, you can tell immediately looking at them that they're troubled kids. That is not the case. These kids look just like this. They can be high-performing students, athletes, and, you know, all sorts of, you know, people that you would never, ever expect. And that would be adults as well as kids, I would say. And then we've got problems in the elderly community with, you know, you get older, you need more and more medications. At least that seems to be the general trend. And you don't necessarily have one doctor watching over that really carefully. You can be prescribed by multiple doctors, and next thing you know, you have some counterindications also with medications that aren't mixing very well. So, you know, you may have to be in a caretaking mode for your parents at some point and be watching over that really carefully. Because as you get older, sometimes you don't even remember you took your pill, you know, 10 minutes ago, you're taking it, and they can fall under the influence of this stuff because they're kind of imbalanced at times, and when they fall, they break things. So there's a whole phenomenon around the elderly generation too. Yes?
I'd also comment that for older folks, you know, they have to be very careful about where they store their pills.
Absolutely, they're targeting.
And take pills and steal them.
Thank you. We have some really good handouts over here. One of them is take them home if you've got a grandparent living close by, because it really puts them on alert that they can't do that. They can literally, all of a sudden you're seeing your grandkids a lot. You're thinking, oh, they really like me, right? They want your pills, and that's the bottom line. So they love you too, I'm sure, but they are really taking advantage of. So grandparents, all of us have to lock up our meds, especially those that we're talking about. Here's just a little sampling of those beautiful faces I was telling you about. I'm personally connected with all of these parents or others, and we've got 2 boys. This poor mom lost her 2 sons. 2 sons. This one lost her 2 sons. I can't even imagine we're losing 2 children to a drug overdose within a couple of years of each other. It's heartbreaking and horrible to get through, and these people have suffered so dramatically. Anyway, again, you just look at these people and how in the world could it be? Everyone I know the story of, and it's really sad. Community impact is huge. We have been seeing, I don't know if you've noticed, but we have been having a little uptick in crime lately, car break-ins and reports of home break-ins. It's fueled typically by drugs. And as the officer, just again, if you have an addiction to either heroin or these painkillers, you'll do anything to get it. And the simple thing is to go into somebody's house, because quite a few of us have these medications that we just didn't get rid of. We had surgery or whatever. They're still sitting in the medicine cabinet. So it's much easier for them to go directly there to get them out of your medicine cabinet than steal something that they've got to go sell and then go get the pills. They just go directly to the source. That's what they're looking for first. So anyway, here we go. Crime is definitely on the increase, and there's a link to all of this stuff. Then family trauma is all about the cycle of addiction and what happens within a family unit when one person, whether it be a parent, a grandparent, or a child, has a problem. It takes its toll on the entire family. It's not just that one person. It affects everybody. When the mom or dad has to kick the kid out or call the cops on them, that's happened. I know people that's happened to right here in Danville. Oh, then we've got the drug driving thing and the financial costs. It's just, more and more misery, really. Painkillers, what you want to look for is this pinpoint pupil. That's one of the signs of abuse for either painkillers or heroin. The black part of their eye will be teeny, just really a pinpoint, they call it. And these are the most commonly prescribed. In the case of Vicodin, it is the most prescribed painkiller. And the interesting thing about that, it has a 7-minute Tylenol in it. And that means, you guys know that you can overdose on Tylenol, right? It hurts your liver if you have too much. So what happens is those that take high quantities of Vicodin for a while, they start to kill off their liver. And then they end up needing a transplant. So we have an increasing number of young people who need a liver now because of Vicodin use, or hydrocodone, which is the generic form of it. So these are the most dangerous. And again, it does absolutely lead to heroin abuse if you need to get something cheaper if you can't afford it any longer. Some of this has already been really talked about by the officer, but one thing would be nodding off or slow breathing. That was one thing I don't really mention. So if you're having a conversation with somebody at the table, maybe over dinner, and you see that they just can't stay awake, they're literally nodding off and then waking up, that is another really important sign to be on the alert for. That would suggest that they have a heroin or a painkiller problem. And then again, all that other stuff that you can see there. Fortunately, if there is a point of no return, but fortunately you can overturn an opioid overdose through the use of naloxone, or also known as Narcan. It's provided in the form of a nasal spray or injectables, or there's a little stamping thing on the left. The key there is you call 911 if you see an overdose happen. If you happen to have this at home, and the good news is now we have a new law that says you can. We can administer this as lay people. So if anybody has anybody in their life, friend, family, or whatever, you should really think about getting Narcan to have available just in case, knowing that overdoses, again, often happen at home. And so what happens is you basically just spray in one nostril if you've got the nasal version of it, wait for a few seconds to see if they come alive, and if it's working, if it's going to work, they can actually be turning blue, and you can spray this up their nostril, and all of a sudden they'll start to come again. They'll start breathing again, and it's really miraculous. We have now been told that Walgreens and CVS are going to start carrying it over the counter, and we now have a law that says it can be provided without a prescription. So very soon, I'm sure by the end of this year, if not sooner, we're going to see both of those pharmacy chains carrying it. So all you have to do is go up to the counter and say, I need naloxone. And what they'll do is they'll give you a quick training, and right now they don't have it out there because they're training their pharmacist workers. But once they're all trained up and they have the medication fully stocked, then you can walk in, get your quick training thing, 5-10 minutes max. You're out the door with this life-saving medication. So the situations that you want to have it on hand, if you have somebody that has an active addiction and you know it, but you're just trying to keep things together, trying to get them to go into rehab. They're not quite ready, but every day is a challenge. The other situation would be is they just went into rehab. Often people are dying when they come out of rehab, they immediately go back to it. Not every time, but a lot of times they do. So if you have somebody that's been off, being treated, you want to have it on hand too, just in case. And then if you have somebody that's been on opioids for a long time for a chronic back problem or whatever kind of problem, they're at higher risk for an overdose too, because they're using higher and higher levels of this medication over time. And there's a fine line there too. So we do see chronic pain patients overdosing as well, so you need to have it on hand. So the good news is it does work.
So is this one can come back to all kinds of, what kind of the usage? So it's just for
opioids.
Just for.
Yeah, so it would be only for painkillers or heroin. It won't work. And if it turns out they're not overdosing from those things, if you deliver it thinking that that is the case, it's okay. It's not going to hurt them.
Even though that you see people dying, not because substance abuse overdose, Narcan now is very popular.
It's saved thousands of people, thousands around the country. We're actually working to see if we can get the police officers to carry it. Right now, it's the fire department, the EMT people. But what we're trying to do is get the police departments to carry, because sometimes they're the first ones to arrive to a situation. And every second, every minute absolutely counts because your breathing stops. And if your breathing stops, your brain starts to die, and you die,
You
right?
see how miracle
Yeah, it is amazing. It's so amazing.
Not specific to the doctor,
Not
just the story of
is.
it.
Yeah.
You see people stop breathing.
Yeah, they can be completely stopped, turning blue, and this will revive them. There is a point of no return. It doesn't always work, but and it's important to get them to the hospital because even though they've come alive, often they don't want to go. Oh, that's not what I'm fine now, right? But the problem is the opioid could seep back in after this wears out, or wears off. So you've got to get them there to see it through the entire overdose episode to make sure they're really, really okay. If you don't have this, rescue breathing, okay, mouth to mouth, get the air going until 911 folks show up. So if you don't have it. The what? Yeah, this one on the right side, it's more of an inhaler, I would say. You can kind of squeeze it up, you push it up into the nostril the way this thing works. So it's a spray, kind of a spray, like maybe, well, there's some nose sprays, for colds and stuff. It's similar to that. You just kind of and then it just sprays that. I may not work too well, but it's really good. And they give you 2 of these things, so you get one for one nostril, and then actually it may be. I think this one actually is enough for 2. This one though actually has 2 little syringes, so you're actually in 2 needles. So you pull out the medication, and then you have to go into another vial if you need it. So anyway, just know that this is really important to have on hand, just in those situations I mentioned. The other category is the sedatives. And so I want to stress this a lot. We've got painkillers that are being abused on our high school and college campuses for sure. But I will tell you, I'm really hearing a lot about Xanax being on hand. A lot of our adults in our communities here are being prescribed Xanax because of it's an anti-anxiety drug. And let's face it, there's a lot of stress out there, right? So it's a very common prescription if you go in and report, hey, I'm really anxious. Well, the kids know that that's a go-to drug. They know that a lot of adults have it in their medicine cabinets, and they learn that, they're under pressure and feeling anxious, then that's a good way to chill out, they think. What they don't know is that it is very addictive too. You take it and your body becomes, just like the painkillers, it becomes tolerant to it, and it gets to the point that it's dependent on it, it needs it. And if you don't get it, then you go into some withdrawals too. And the thing is with Xanax, you can't just say one day, okay, I'm done taking this one. Once your body's dependent on it, and you're kind of addicted to it, you can't just stop because you can go into a lethal seizure. You have to be weaned off of it a little bit at a time, and it can take months.
And also, special Asian people is very sensitive
Really?
to this medication. So when they prescribe this medication, they're really careful for Asian people. So
I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing
so
that.
for Asian, the substance abuse, this medication is much easy to get. They get much advantage.
Okay, that is really good to know. I will definitely keep that in mind and share that. Another one that we've got here is Ativan. That one's, pretty commonly prescribed for anxiety. One that I usually have up here, I change the slides out sometimes depending on who I'm going to be talking with, but Ambien. Have you heard of Ambien? That's one for sleeping. It helps you go to sleep and stay asleep, theoretically. But I will tell you, that one scares me. I would never take that drug. And the reason for it is, for some people, there's an amnesiac effect, and that means that you'll take it, and maybe you'll wake up and you don't remember taking it, because that memory of it is gone. So you'll take another one. I know somebody that took like 8 pills. He realized that the next day when they're all gone, right? But what happened with him, he gets up, he doesn't even know what he's doing. He gets up, he goes into the bathroom, he had just had surgery. And so they'd given him this stuff to help him sleep because he had pain from the surgery, right? So he goes in, he stumbles, he falls. Thank goodness he didn't hurt his surgical repair, you know. But others that I know of, in fact, just this week when I was speaking over at San Ramon Valley High, I had one girl tell me something that's pretty common. She said, oh yeah, my mom was cooking. She got up, went into the kitchen, and she made some food. And she's burning pans, she's burning the food, and she had no idea what she's doing. So the next day, she's blaming the kids. She said, why did you do all this stuff? She didn't remember she had done it. She thought the kids had done it. That's a little example. Now, the worst case scenario I've heard is when somebody's got behind the wheel. Seriously, they get in their car and they're driving. They don't even realize they're driving. Along the way, in two situations I'm aware of, they had an accident and people were killed. So naturally, they were arrested and they had this big trial thing going on. Well, their defense was, I was taking my medication just as it was prescribed to me. I wasn't abusing it, so I can't be held accountable, can I? Well, they were. They didn't get out of it for that reason. They still killed somebody. So anyway, driving under the influence, especially with this stuff, can be really serious. The other thing is, I don't know if you saw, I don't know if you even watched this program, 60 Minutes though, I love. They always have these investigative reports. Over a year ago, they had something that was specific to Ambien, and what they were doing was looking at the properties and how it affects women in particular. And I don't remember what drove them to do that. But what they determined was that the normal dose that we're given is based on trials that were done on men that the FDA, has approved. And so the drugs were being tested on men, not women. And it turns out that we, women, do not process Ambien as well as men do. We literally need about half the dosage that we're typically given. So there was this whole discussion on 60 Minutes around, well, we maybe need to start thinking about having drug tests, the trials that they do before they approve a drug, be done on women. What I learned that night was that they don't do it. It's always men. Well, we have different bodies. We have different hormones. You never know. So that was really a wake-up call, and a wake-up call for some of the people that were involved in that study. So anyway, Ambien, that one's a scary one for me for multiple reasons. The dosing for a woman as well as this amnesia issue. So anyway, all of these. Klonopin, I've heard of lots of young people getting hooked on Klonopin, and you don't even think about that one. Valium, of course, those are pills that are around. And the reason for them being dangerous also is because of that same thing that happens in the case of painkillers. It works on your central nervous system. So it's a depressant. It controls your pain, controls your anxiety or whatever. Here, at the same time it's doing that, it's working on the same part of your brain that controls your breathing. So the more you've got in your system, the more your breathing mechanism becomes compromised, and ultimately it can stop, just like Joey. You go to sleep and that's it. All right, then we've got stimulants, which has the opposite effect. These drugs for somebody that has ADHD or ADD, that this is something that calms them down and helps them focus, and they can do better in school, so it's very widely prescribed. But again, those kids that are prescribed are often, asked to share their medication. And for somebody that doesn't have ADHD, it has the opposite effect. It ramps everything up. Your heart rate's increased. I've had kids tell me, their heart beats pretty wildly. And they may or may not like that. It's kind of scary, I think. The blood pressure goes up. The other thing is, because it keeps you awake, it can completely change your sleeping cycle to the point that you really can't sleep well for a while after you stop taking these. You can have chronic insomnia, and if you don't sleep, you get really cranky and you can do some erratic things. So sometimes people get angry and do some ugly things. So anyway, it can be a problem, and it is addictive. The longer you take Adderall when you're not an ADHD patient, the more chance you're going to get addicted to it, and it's hard to come off of too. I was just looking the other day on how do what kind of treatment do they give for people that are hooked on Adderall or stimulants, and it was interesting. So what to look for stimulant abuse is kind of the opposite with those pupils. It will be dilated pupils. The center will be really big, saucer-like big. Weight loss, so if you see your child or somebody, in your family, whatever, starting to lose weight, it's often abused, in fact, not just to study, but to lose weight. Your appetite goes away, you'll lose weight all right, but you're not going to be healthy because you're not taking in the calories and the nutrients that you need. And then again, this aggression and unusual emotional outbursts, if you start seeing that and the weight loss and those dilated pupils, you need to have a talk. That would be something I'd be real concerned about. We have young people abusing cough medicine, and
I think cough medicine tastes terrible. I've never had a good one. But what they do is they mix Jolly Ranchers in particular. If you started all of a sudden seeing those and cough medicine's disappearing, you may have a clue of something going on. I didn't really realize until I was asked to actually provide a slide and talk about cough medicine abuse, and I did some research myself, that I came to understand how dangerous this really is. This is a short list of the potential effects or downstream impacts that you can have. Robotripping and dexing and robodosing, I think it is. There's all sorts of slang words for it, schlurping or all kinds of things. This cough medicine abuse is often glorified in the music out there, the rap music in particular. And so over in Marin County, we've actually had a couple of kids that have died over the last, I would say, 4 months at 2 different schools. Multiple people overdosing, and those 2 died. So you can lose your life to them. On a national level, to control this problem, and I don't know, how many of you listened to the President's State of the Union address? Nobody? I did, because I also heard, I always listen to it anyway, but I had heard in advance that he was going to mention prescription drug abuse as an issue, and I couldn't wait to hear that and verify that. Sure enough, within the first minute or 2 of his speech just a few weeks ago, he mentioned that we've got a major problem in our country. That was a huge moment for me because I've been working for the last 6 years to get that to happen. I talked to the Office of National Drug Control Policy's director a couple of years ago at a conference back in Atlanta. I said, it's really nice you're here with us. I really appreciate that. But you know what? We need to hear from our president. So 2 years later, he did.
I just saw a video yesterday because I was there for the seminar. President Obama is going to Atlanta.
That's where I'm going to be next week. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Yep, $1.1 billion so that followed. And then I'm going to be seeing him at the conference I'll be at. It's a conference, it's the National Prescription Drug, now Heroin, also, Abuse Summit. And this is the 5th year it's been in operation. He's going to be there on Tuesday. So this is a good thing. We need that level of attention. We had, 1 or 2 people die of Ebola, a year or so ago. They, just the announcement that it had entered our country stimulated, everybody came to the table. Everybody came to the table. For this, we lose enough people, a plane crashes every day with the number of people we lose, and we have just now heard from our president. So good news, at least it didn't take another 10 years, but I want to see some action now. This is the national program, and we know prescription drug monitoring programs. Now every state with Missouri has one, and they're being pressured to get one. It's in the works now for the legislative process. Medication management is huge. All of us can make a difference immediately by going home tonight and looking in your medicine cabinet to see what you've got. Lock it up if you need it still. People tend to stockpile. And what happens is that leaves it exposed to whoever wants to come in and get it. It can be young kids, it can be family members you wouldn't even guess has a problem. It can be neighbors. We've got to lock the stuff up, don't stockpile it. Anything that you have that you don't want anymore or that is expired, you need to take to the fire department. I'm sorry, I'm fed out to the police department. You take the sharps to the fire department. You take your medicines to the police department. So Danville, San Ramon, and the Alamo substation all have these bins locked down because they don't want them to walk out, right? Somebody that wants to take the whole bin and the drugs in it. But bottom line is you just walk in, take the medicine with you in the vial as it was, because what if you got into an accident or something along the way, or a police officer pulled you over because something's going on, and you don't want to have pills in a baggie because they will think that they're illegal. So keep them in the vials. When you get to the police station, park, take them all out, put them in a baggie, so your identifying information is, staying with you. Destroy that at home, and then you just drop it in. Nobody has any questions. You don't have to sign in or out. You just drop them off. Get rid of them. You don't want to flush them, and that's because it's hurting our water system. We have now aquatic creatures that are looking really weird. Little fish that don't know what sex they are and all kinds of things. I work a lot with the environment stuff too, with the waste management people. So it's been interesting to see what's going on there. So we're working on trying to get a nationwide system together that allows the pharmaceutical companies to pay for the disposal since they're making billions off of selling the stuff. So that's a whole other story. And we've got law enforcement. We can't arrest our way out of this problem, but we know that law enforcement does play a huge role. They go after the dirty doctors where they exist, like saying. They also go after the really big drug dealers who are, throwing this stuff out on the streets to our kids. And then education, that's why I'm here. It's really, again, education plays a huge role in getting this problem to be minimized. We need to know what's going on and make sure everybody's got it. So education, huge. Going home and doing this thing, lock them up or get rid of them. And then I want you guys to think about this. I do it myself now routinely. If I go to the doctor and they're going to hand me a prescription of whatever sort, the first question I ask is, what are the side effects? And then I don't really necessarily trust I'm going to get the whole story. I go home before I even fill that prescription and I look it up. I do my Google track and I say, hey, what is the rest of the story? And then I assess whether I think my condition's bad enough to warrant those potential side effects, because you don't know. You have no idea if you're going to be the one that ends up with them. And then I ask the question, especially if it's a pain issue. And this would be for our young people too, because sports injuries are very, very prevalent. A lot of our kids play sports. Is this medication addictive? If it's a painful condition, you can be almost guaranteed. If they're handing you a prescription, it's addictive. It's a narcotic. And if it is, and especially if you know you've got a family history of addiction, somebody else close to you genetically has a problem, whether it's tobacco or nicotine, of course, or if it's alcohol or any of these other medications or street drugs, then you were more likely to have a problem than somebody that doesn't have that family history. So then ask the question, well, what other alternatives are there? I don't want to necessarily go down that road. And also assess your pain levels. I've had kids tell me, well, I had a broken this or that, and they got prescribed some really potent pain meds. And then as we talked it through, they said, I think I probably could have lived on Advil or Motrin. You can take higher quantities of that for short-term time frames than you would think under a doctor's care. So bottom line is there's other alternatives. And then if you have stress, why take Xanax? Go take a hike. I always say you can't be in a bad mood. Being outdoors does wonders for you. And of course, there's other alternatives too. What about acupuncture? What about chiropractic help? You're not going to get hooked on that stuff. Try that first. Try, losing weight if you're overweight and your joints are hurting, whatever. There's lots of other things to consider. And always read those drug labels, because every drug has a potential side effect.
Nowadays, people taking supplements.
Yeah.
Are there anything like in the supplement category?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I don't usually think to talk about that, but yes, you've got to consider what supplements you're taking in addition to what other medications. So the good thing to do is to always have a list of what you're taking. Take it with you to every appointment, assuming that they may be giving you a prescription. You want that doctor to know. And then, the pharmacists know a lot about this stuff. They know more sometimes than the doctors do about interactions. So make sure you take that with you to a pharmacist and have that conversation that they always offer.
Well, my question is, are any of the supplements that could be addictive?
I don't know that they are. I'm not an expert at all on the supplements. However, I do. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'll do some more research.
Well, I have another question.
Uh-huh.
When doctor overprescribing medications, do they benefit financially from that?
I had a really interesting conversation after all my high school, presentations before coming here. I had about an hour conversation with a lady who is she works in a hospital, so she's a nurse and she's actually an attorney too, which is an interesting combination, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, she was telling me about all these doctors that she feels are just really overprescribing. And I said, well, why would they do that? I know sometimes they do it, saying it was all about money. She made $5 million in 3 years off of her business. Yeah, because you have patients. Like in her case, the dirty doctors will have zillions of patients. They're just doling out prescriptions really quickly, so they can see tons of patients in a day. Everyone that came in to see her was paying cash. So she can hide some of her money, not pay taxes on it perhaps. She had an x-ray machine in her office, so she could pretend she's taking x-rays and charge for them. She didn't. She actually used the same x-ray for multiple patients, showing there was a problem. And in one case, there was an x-ray that was in the person's file of an arm, and the problem was his leg, crazy things like that. But anyway, they can, there are sometimes pharmaceutical company benefits. It's all about money. yeah, one way or the other, it really triggers in, or factors in a lot.
The other thing is that, for people that have PPOs, in the fee-for-service world, pain doctors or pain clinics, I mean, they get their money based on doing procedures, injections, and things like that.
Yeah.
So the thing is that in order to get patients to keep coming back for these injections, they need them to, they need to prescribe the medication every single month, otherwise they'll just go to another doctor.
Yeah, so a lot of it is just customer satisfaction, right? So it's like if I don't give it out, then somebody else will, and they want it. So once you have somebody that has a regimen of medication, and they have to come, that you can't call a prescription, then they will be back to see you every month or more, So anyway, it ends up being about money. So find alternative treatment options, especially for young people. If they have a sports injury or that dental procedure, the wisdom teeth being taken out, do not give in to a dentist just blindly giving Vicodin out. There is really no need for that necessarily. Take the prescription perhaps, but wait and see if you really need it. Example would be Joey. When he was, I think, a freshman in college, he had all 4 of his wisdom teeth removed, oral surgery, and we, okay, we did that. We took the prescription, we got it filled. We said, okay, Joe, we're going to put this up. If you really, really need it, if it turns out your pain levels are really high, beyond the level that this Advil we're going to give you will take care of, come see us and we'll talk about it. But otherwise, we knew enough to know it could be addictive, and we didn't want that to happen. So he never came to see us. That was it. He did fine on Advil. Now, he was a football player, and he was used to getting hurt, right? So chances are he had a higher level of pain tolerance maybe than some. But bottom line is there are alternatives, and it's really best to try them. You don't want to give a kid a dangerous drug like this. It's changing the brain chemistry. They may like it a lot. These drugs can be really seductive. And if they like it, they'll be down that road before you know it. We have this Meds Coalition. So I've got my nonprofit organization, the National Coalition Against Prescription Drug Abuse, but we now also have formed the Meds Coalition. And we would love to have anybody in here join up with us. What we're doing is using this organization. We've got over 100 members. Not all of them come to every meeting. We try to meet once a month, typically on the first Tuesday of the month. And we basically plan activities. Most recently, it was the Dose of Awareness Walk. It was over at Iron Horse Middle School, so we had a 5K walk. We had alternative treatment option, tabling going on, and all sorts of things. And a memorial that was really touching to commemorate those that we've lost to this problem. So bottom line is, if you're interested, we have a sign up on the table over there. Just give us your contact information. And even if you just want to have, be included on the mailing list so you learn about future educational opportunities that we're giving our community, you can check the box that applies to you. And then otherwise, just be safe. We have great information. You're free to take. It's all free stuff. And I speak all over the place, and I'm happy to come to club meetings, to group meetings. If you want to have friends come to your house, I'd be happy to do that. Bottom line is I just want to get this information out and make sure people stay safe. So, one question over here?
I have a comment actually. I'm so grateful that I'm here to listen to your
talk. Thank you.
I recently read a book with The Teenage Brain, the neuroscientist's survival guide to raising adolescents and young adults. And a lot of the points that you made were part of her book. But of course her book is a much larger book. And so one of the theories, not a theory, one of the points she made was actually based on a research. It seems that nowadays there are more and more drug abuses, especially among teenagers and young adults. What she's saying that researchers have shown that kids exposed to excessive amount of sugar or sugary foods so the excessive exposure of sugary foods may have something to do with later on abuses of substances, because it triggers the exact same stimulation in the exact same spot. So America tends to be more overloaded with sugary foods, just sugar and all kinds of sweeteners. So parents probably need to be aware that things like this could trigger later on addictive behavior. And of course, things like early exposure to smoking would definitely lead to the kind of brain behavior that could lead to
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That sounds like a great book. I'll have to look it up. I'll talk to you after and make sure I write it down. The early first use is really, really important. So, the first predictor of a possible development of an addiction is really the family history, but second is really the early use. They say that if you can delay even a year, there's less chance. The more years you can delay the abuse or use of these substances, having your brain introduced to those chemicals, the less likely you are going to be to develop an addiction. So it's really important that we protect that. Again, that teen brain has not been fully developed until at least 25 or 26, and I'm hearing now with the guys that maybe even longer, so we have to keep that in mind. So, Andy, I know we're getting close to the end. Do we want to just open it up for questions, or how would you like to do that?
Any questions?
Yes, we have a Q&A session about 5 to 10 minutes, and then Annie's going to wrap up for today's seminar. If you have more questions, please.
And I'm happy to answer.
Thank you for sharing personal tragic stories. Really heartbreaking. It's a great courage for you to say.
Thank you. Well, it's the only reaction I could have. It's like, no, other people died. They didn't share it with me, but I'm not going to be that person.
And then it is it's a shocking reality happening. We thought it's impossible. Actually, it was happening, and I was really shocked. And any more questions? If you guys have no questions, please ask. And then Andy, our person, is going to wrap up. Yes, please. 5 to 8. I would say 5 to 8 minutes Q&A session. Any concerns? More questions, please.
People already asked the question.
Maybe there aren't any. I'm happy to hang out a little bit too. Sometimes people want to just ask questions one-on-one too.
Yes, about that doctor, his practice, any regulation improvement, and among the medical field, they have regulations that
Well, this is so recent. She was just sentenced on February 5th. That's how recent this is. We finished the case at the end of last year, and then the sentencing was put off for 2 months. So I will tell you this, that I have Google alerts set up so that basically I have all these things, messages flooding in. I have them set up on Lisa saying. So anything that shows up in the media comes to me, so I see what's going on there. And of course, our organization and others. So I still continue to get messages. People are analyzing what happened, and they're trying to, they sound off on whether they think this is a good thing, a bad thing. The medical community is absolutely on alert. I've talked to people that are saying, well, gee, those people that have acute pain problems are now not going to be able to get the medications because doctors are going to be so scared they won't prescribe. But I say this, that if they're doing the good job they're supposed to do, there's no reason to think that they're going to be shut down. She was horrible. She wasn't your usual doctor. She wasn't even your well-meaning doctor that was over-prescribing. She was horrible. She didn't care about human life. There was a difference there. So, we'll see what happens. And I think over time we will see some change. I'm already starting to see it because of other things going on.
Some of the pictures that you showed the drugs that they pass around, they look like candies.
They do.
And I've seen those pictures on the internet and everywhere. Sometimes, it's parents, my kids are in the middle school, high school. It just kind of get paranoid. And just basically I tell my kids, don't eat anything that don't belong to you. And I go to the gatherings. If you open a bottle of water, hang on to that bottle of water. I feel like I'm paranoid. I know I'm sounding strange to my daughter, but that's how I feel. I don't know whether everybody's doing that. It's just basically you open up having a drink with you, and then you have to have it with you, or next time open up a new one.
My mom told me that too.
Oh, is that right? Okay, so
that's not new. Oh no, that's not new. What I want you guys to know is little kids, what you said triggered that too. Little kids think these pills are candy. They really do. They're colorful, they're pretty. So it's so important not to leave them on counters. We have about 70,000 kids a year that overdose. They survive usually because they get treated, if they have a parent around, but that's scary. So little kids, people of all ages, can absolutely be impacted. So.
Maybe we can take the last question.
Last question?
Yeah, so we hear about it, like, drugs in high schools and whatnot, right? So how did it get started? As a parent, I'm paranoid. Like, I see that it's from prescription, it's from illegal dealing. Like, what are the
things we can do? Where do they get started?
Well, you know, it's a great question. We talk about this in the classroom. So they don't usually go to heroin first, okay? They just don't. What happens is there's a casual, they're in a party or friend setting, and somebody has alcohol or they have marijuana. You've heard gateway drug mentioned. I mean, those are absolutely gateways. If they're willing to take a drink, they've stepped over a boundary. They know it's there. They know they're not supposed to drink. It's illegal. If they smoke marijuana, they know that they take. Well, then they get curious. Well, what next? And then it's an evolution, but it can happen really quickly. That they're trying pills next, and then they get hooked, and then next thing you know, they're off and running in all kinds of ways. So that's the reason they just got to, what I would say is this, that what you can do is talk to them, because kids, even though they don't act like they're listening, they actually do. It's there. They can recall it when they need to, and especially if they hear it somewhere else, it validates what you've told them. Statistics are saying that, I think it's like 50% less chance your kids will get hooked on things or get involved with things if you're talking to them. The key is you need to know what to talk to them about. So the fact you're here tonight, at least you've gotten some knowledge, and that is powerful. Your kids, how many kids we have a lot of kids out here. I'm curious as to what reaction you guys have to this information. Does anybody want to say, what did you learn that you didn't know before, and is this going to make a difference? I know. Yeah, no, it's serious. I mean, we want to be as effective. We are here because we care. I didn't get paid a penny to be here. I never take money. We are here because we care about your lives. I don't want a beautiful child out here to end up where my son did. There's so much delight in life to appreciate and enjoy, and I don't want that to happen. It's so avoidable. Every death, every one of these is avoidable.
Yeah, I think April, we know each other for like more than 2 years. I mean, I didn't realize that that tragedy until like very recent, like the past 6 months.
Yeah.
And
I had a presentation for Rotary.
yes, and before that, I thought it's especially prescription drug abuse is far away from me. I mean, it would not happen in our community, and then it happened to her son. After that, I thought about one of my college classmates, and we live in a dorm with like 6 people. Now I realize he is like the abused prescription drug, because in China most of it has some medicine there. He just took our medicine and eat it. And at that time I have no knowledge that he is like abused the prescription drug. I said, oh, that's okay, you take it.
You didn't know.
No, I have no clue.
Now you know.
Yeah. So thank you, April, so much for coming to us and give a great presentation. Yeah, and there's some handout there, and then feel free to take some. Also, thank you everyone for coming to our event, and also let's give a round of applause for our volunteers. They help us a lot. So just take a minute, we have other educational thing. Thank you, everyone.